So again, I want to introduce William Brown, or Bill Brown, the Chief Environmental Officer from the Ocean Energy Management Division of the U.S. Department of the Interior. I was representing again Secretary Sally Jewell. Mr. Brown is the Chief Environmental Officer for the Bureau, and he is responsible for overseeing the federal environmental science and assessment for energy development on the outer continental shelf. And then, again, I know that we all are familiar with some of the debates that go on with respect to the development and exploration of that great resource. But again, Bill is here to perhaps shed a light on some of the developments that are happening in that space. Bill also serves as the Bureau's Tribal Liaison Officer. And as I was mentioning, again, these are resources that we are grateful for our Native American brothers and sisters for allowing us to use, and he is responsible for making sure that we're using them in a way that also benefits those tribes, and is dedicated to the cultural preservation and promoting initiatives to enhance public awareness of the Bureau's activities, resources, and the Bureau is responsible for protecting. So without any further ado, let us bring our hands together for Bill Brown.
I promise you I'll be brief. And I have to agree that if you looked at my background, you'd probably find it was fairly obscure and think about what it amounts to. First of all, I'm pleased to be here, and I'm sure the Secretary would be here herself if she could. She is pretty busy lately, in part because of the issues surrounding oil and gas. You've probably been reading about the Arctic, for example, which is in the news quite a bit. I will note that my bureau and the Interior Department regulate not just oil and gas, but wind and any other kind of energy offshore, and we're promoting wind as much as we can. So I actually just had a few anecdotes on science at the Interior Department, because I'm not sure everybody appreciates how interesting a lot of the work that the department does is, and not just my bureau. And I would say, for example, you may have noted that the U.S. Geological Survey, for example, has been the principal authoritative voice on the earthquake in Nepal, and when someone needs to go up to explain what's really going on, it's USGS, which is an agency of the department. It's also the case right now that a lot of people are worried about bird flu, avian influenza. The Agriculture Department has now killed about 30 million turkeys and chickens as that flu expands. 25 million of them actually in Iowa, so I wonder how that'll affect the primaries. But the scientific work on that is much USGS. And then in terms of energy, USGS, and along with BOEM, is the most trusted source of information on fossil fuel resources. They're the agencies you go to look at that. The Fish and Wildlife Service is on the energy front, studying and helping make sure that birds aren't killed, if possible, by windmills offshore. It is an issue. And they also work on the science and regulation concerning migratory fish that go through dams. The National Park Service, I think one of the more interesting examples of their science is that in the 1960s there was a bacterium that was discovered in Yellowstone National Park. It's Thermus aquaticus, which was found to have an enzyme, Taq polymerase, which became the basis for the DNA fingerprinting, which is widely used now. And the reason why that enzyme was important was it can survive high temperatures, and needed that for the process. Really important initiative. And then a few things about BOEM. We have my agency has a $35 million a year studies program, which is within my group, that looks into the potential adverse environmental effects of energy, both oil and gas and wind. And it covers all kinds of areas, ice in the Arctic potential to make sure that if you remove platforms in the Gulf, that you do it in a way that minimizes killing fish. And one of the things that we do in respect to Native peoples is fund, and I want to fund more research that relates to the use of traditional knowledge, the knowledge of Native peoples, to integrate it with sort of Western science. And it's not uncommon to find, Western science is good, but there have been a number of cases where the people that actually lived there for a millennia sometimes know what's happening even better, quicker. And then youth, to note, that's a priority for the department. It's a personal priority for Secretary Jewell. She's shown a number of us pictures of her children and things like that to try to get you to get in with the kids. And one of the things we just funded was $50,000 for what's called the Ocean Science Bowl. And it's sort of like It's Academic, except it's ocean science. So we're finding ways to move that forward. I'll close with a story, but the story relates to, I think, what is a need for the U.S. government and a number of other institutions to enhance diversity, that it would be helpful. And the story concerns a corporate CEO who they say was newly elected by his board, and he went to a factory. And he was there to sort of, show them he meant business. And he walked into his factory, and everybody was working hard except for one individual who was leaning up against the wall, doing nothing. So I went up to that person, and he said, "What are you doing?" The person said, "I'm just waiting to get paid." So I was taken aback. So I figured he knew he would make an example out of him. And he said, "How much do you get paid a week?" And the man said, $500. So the CEO took out his checkbook and he wrote a check for $1,500, and he said, "Here, 3 weeks' pay. Get out of here." The guy left. And then the CEO went back to the podium and he looked around and he said, "Now, what did I just do?" And people were kind of sheepish, but finally one guy raised his hand and he said, "All right, now, what did I just do?" You just gave the pizza delivery man a $1,500 tip. So now, if it had been government, you couldn't have done that because it'd be civil service protection. But my point is, sometimes we don't really accurately listen well enough, and we need diversity. So thank you very much.